that a minimum of 64,000 children are now in this care system, which is totally secret. We've got to deal with the situation, and we've got to deal with it fast. And the best means of dealing with it is for people to expose the truth and for people to start demanding that these secret courts are fully opened up. And we've seen time and time again that the likes of Jack Straw and Kenneth Clark and the Family Law Division, they have debates where they put up a smokescreen of words that they're going to do something about this situation. I'm going to say they are never going to do something about it unless they're pushed, because their objective is to break up families and steal children, essentially, in order to destabilise society. I can't put it over more.
Could I take you even deeper down the rabbit hole than that, possibly? And without drawing any inferences into this case or any of the cases that you were discussing that you're dealing with on a personal level, perhaps on a more generalistic level, would you suggest what the underlying purpose is for these forced adoptions? Where are these children being adopted into?
Well,
reason.
I have no doubt from my research, and there are many, many other people out there who have been researching far longer than I have. What we are seeing is a vicious political agenda which has the objective to break up as many family units as possible. And that is because a happy family unit is basic stability in society. If you break the family unit, it is much easier to manipulate and control mum and dad or the children as individuals. And we have got a vicious dictatorship forming. It's all colours, do not be fooled. It's blue or red or yellow. Lib Dems, Tories and Labour are working together on this. They want to destroy the family in order to help bring in this single socialist state. They want the children isolated because, as the Nazi regime identified very early on, if they control the children, they don't really care about protesters like myself and other people campaigning. They already own the minds of the children. These people are absolutely vicious. We've got a Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Clegg, who before the last election thought that a lady who was a director of porn films was an ideal candidate to be one of his MPs. Although it was kept very quiet, the Lib Dem party were pushing very hard for the age of consent to be further dropped to 14. And when we challenged them on that, when the UK column challenged them on that, they went very quiet. We have Labour MPs who were involved with Liberty. And Liberty, if you check back through its history, was linked to the Paedophile Information Exchange and another paedophile organisation. And in Europe, we are seeing more and more European legislation which is pushing towards making paedophilia lawful.
Right, now we're going deeper down the rabbit hole, I think, Brian, and this is the point that I really wanted to touch on because it's, as you know, so very dear to my heart. And this is the effect of paedophilia on the, I think it's in the 7 to 12-year-old range. The victim is very likely to experience something called dissociative disorder, which is where the traumatized psyche separates into two essentially completely separate wholes, and the abused child will switch into the abused persona during the periods of abuse, and then may switch back into their original persona immediately afterwards, and the two may have no recollection of the existence of the other, and that the effect on this as one passes into adult life is to make the victim subject to these dissociative states in any period in their life where the triggers the cues, the environmental cues during the abuse are reinstated, and that many studies have been done through, like you say, the Nazis before the Second World War, through some of the CIA experiments, that this makes people very manipulable. And it's very easy to take one of these fractured psyches and basically weaponize it to a greater or lesser degree. Do you see some of that being involved here?
Well, I've certainly done research into these areas, and I can say that I'm really delighted, particularly over the last 6 months, where professional people, clinical psychologists and NLP practitioners are coming forward and giving advice and information about the actual damage that can be done on young children in this way. So again, I'm saying we're not talking theory here. We've got expert professionals coming forward because they are also concerned. But aside from the damage to the children, the other thing which is absolutely clear at the moment is that paedophilia is being encouraged through society. And the reason it's being encouraged is not only for the breakdown of morality and order, as most adults would accept. What we are also seeing is that the paedophilia is being used as the control mechanism to bully and blackmail senior political people, judges, lords, police officers into doing the political bidding. And I've said this before at talks. When I joined the Navy in 1972, if you were going to be security cleared, which I was, you had to reveal what you had been up to. They were interested if you were an excessive drinker. They wanted to know if you'd taken drugs, if you'd committed adultery. They were certainly interested at that stage if you were a homosexual. And why were they interested? Because if you had secrets, you could be blackmailed. Now, what we're seeing is that we've now got society to such a state that you can be an MP, a member of parliament, you can take drugs, you can use rent boys, you can attend orgies, and you can still hold on to your position in Westminster. So how can you be bullied and controlled and blackmailed? Paedophilia, still not acceptable. So when I see these roundups, and we've had one recently with the papers crowing that another big ring has been broken, it is absolutely untrue, because the people who are driving these rings are at the very top of society. And I'm not going to be shy here in saying I've watched with great interest as we've had Prince Andrew staying with a man who's a convicted paedophile. I think we need to ask some serious questions about who we've got governing this country and what their true motives are.
I mean, something that I would like to add here is that in my researches into paedophilia, which, like I say, is not necessarily a pet topic of mine, but certainly something that I haven't personally experienced, but have had so many friends and loved ones who have had direct experience of it and the fallout that results from it, is that paedophilia is not a natural predilection of the heterosexual person, not even necessarily of the homosexually aligned person. It would appear to be something that is brought about by being preyed upon by a paedophile as a child, and that the real misfortune of this is that a paedophile will not go on to form a lifelong relationship with a child. They will constantly need new children. And as a result, every single one paedophile that reverts to the pre-programming that happened during their childhood abuse,
yes,
then goes on to create thousands more, or certainly possibly the potential of hundreds or thousands more abused children, who will then have a predilection towards the abuse of other children.
So what you're actually saying is that it is a very powerful, and I'm going to use the word promiscuous. It spreads very quickly. is what you're saying to me.
Well,
and in
again,
my mind,
you have the sexualisation of children through the mainstream media anyway, the likes of Britney Spears in a schoolgirl outfit and the constant bombarding of the eyes with images of sexualised children on the screen.
This is where we're discussing this very, very serious and dark subject. But if we come back to factual things, people may ask themselves, why is it that an organisation like Liberty originally had members who were campaigning to allow people to take pornographic pictures of young children? We've got an organisation called Liberty, which is supposed to be defending liberty, and that was what it was doing back in the 80s. Now, people who look out there, most of the listeners are going to be good people, they're going to be nice people, and one of the things that I try and get across is just because you are nice does not mean to say there aren't some absolutely wicked people out there. And if you believe that wicked people are at the bottom end of society, they're the criminals, I'll say to you, there may be criminals, of course there are at the bottom end of society, but the really dangerous criminals are the ones sitting in warm, well-lit offices in pinstripe suits. And we are looking at the moment at our Parliament, which is absolutely turning a blind eye to the Holly Gregg case, where the young, as she was, Down syndrome child was raped by senior members of the Scottish establishment. We have not yet got one MP who has offered to come and look at the documentary evidence. And when we put these other cases forward to MPs, they lie, they prevaricate, they refuse to see you. And you have to ask why. And I'm going to say to the audience, and I don't say it lightly, I have come to the opinion that none of the MPs will help because they are implicated in this massive abuse on young children. The paedophiles are in Westminster.
That certainly is borne out by a lot of the researches that I've done, and alarmingly, the numbers of already outed paedophiles is just vast. When I trawled through the list, my jaw just dropped further and further and further, and the list was actually for people that had been convicted of various nefarious activities. So this wasn't just the suggestion of people, rumour mongering. These are actual court cases, and the list was enormous.
I'll take this further, but and this is where I have been educated. I have professional people who've taught me a lot, including police officers, about this very nasty subject. But if you like sweets, where would you like to work? It's a sweetie shop. So wherever we have children, and particularly vulnerable children, we can expect to see that is the place where the paedophiles are going to focus their attention. And if we now have, as we do, secret family courts, which are taking children, and in many of the cases, the children, once they're removed from the parents, disappear because the parents are not allowed to know where the child is living or under what conditions. That is an absolutely perfect breeding ground to allow the paedophiles to carry out their dirty deeds. And it is absolutely naive for people to say everybody in child services is a dedicated, nice person. That is definitely not true. If we then add another subject, the paedophile needs to groom the child in order to ultimately get their way sexually with the child. What we are now doing by the likes of common